Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Jared. This is my channel, J&H Classics. This is going to be another quick update video. I'm going to go over the progress that I've made on the Honda as well as the FJ, the Land Cruiser. It's been an extremely frustrating several days with the Honda. So, I originally ordered this set of pistons for the Honda. These were standard size. They came from a company in Australia. You may have seen the video where I tried to install them and I broke one of the piston rings. So I had to order at least new rings. But several people told me that this company, I think it's JP Pistons, not to use these pistons because they don't make them out of the right material. They're going to expand and they're going to seize the engine. Don't use them. So I tracked down original pistons, new old stock piston rings for the engine, and I ordered again standard size pistons because I didn't want to have to hone out the cylinders. They were still in decent shape. Unfortunately, the pistons I got were not standard size. They were oversized. That was okay. I took the cylinders in and I had them honed out, which was really even better than using the cylinders with just the small amount of cleanup that I did to them. So I had them honed. That took about 2 weeks. I finally got them back. I've been, for the last 2 days, I probably have at least 10 hours in just trying to install these pistons into this engine. Normally, you take the piston rods off, you put a piston in through the top, and then you bolt the rod back on to the crank on a normal engine. This has a roller bearing crank, so you cannot do that. You cannot take the piston rods off. So you have to install the pistons and the rings all at once, all into the engine. So the way that you're supposed to be able to do that, these sleeves have a slight little edge on them that's at an angle, and that helps compress the rings as you push them in. Unfortunately, half of those little beveled edges broke off, which is pretty common. But so the sleeves no longer have the ability to compress the piston rings like they should have. So what used to be a challenging installation of pistons and rings is now nearly impossible because of those sleeves, which of course you can't replace, or they're extremely hard to replace. However, after many attempts from several different ways of installing these, I finally came up with a system where I would put 2 of the pistons in the cylinders without the crank, then lower the crank down, put the rods in, put those 2 middle pistons down, and then install the outer pistons. And I did that, and I got it all back together, and I flipped it over, and everything was fine, and the crank spun, and it was finally done. And then I realized the pistons were in the wrong way. The pistons have grooves cut in them for the intake and the exhaust, and they're slightly different, and I had them backwards, even though I tried to be extremely careful not to do that. So I just now pulled it back apart, turned all the pistons around, went to reinstall it for the final time. And by the way, before I started all of this, when I ordered the pistons, I ordered 5 sets of rings just in case I broke some, because I broke them the last time. So I had an extra set of rings. In this process, in the many attempts to trying to put these in, I broke that entire extra set of rings. There's 3 different rings, and I broke each one of them at different times. So I had just barely enough, because I had bought an extra set of rings. I had just enough to finally put it together, and I did. I put it together and it worked, but of course they were backwards. So now in my second attempt to put it back together, after turning the pistons in the right direction, I broke another ring, the final ring that I have. This oil ring broke. So now I'm fucked again. So I will go back again and order several new sets of rings, probably 4 new sets of rings. And then a month from now, when I hopefully will be able to get those parts, I will once again try to assemble this engine. This has been the most difficult thing I've ever worked on. This engine is amazing. It has impressed me all throughout this process, but it is extremely, extremely difficult and frustrating. So anyway, that's the Honda engine. This is the rest of the car. I've got it back in the garage. I still have a lot to do on the car. I wouldn't be driving it by any means if the engine were back together anyways. I still have to pull the fuel tank out, clean it. I have to go through all the brakes, get them working. So I have plenty of time. I have a month's worth of work to do on the car before I'd be ready to drive it anyways. But I was so close to finally having this thing back together. And then of course it didn't happen. Anyway, that's the Honda. So you can see here I've got the shop manual for it, all the gaskets. That's the Honda. So for the Land Cruiser, in my last video, you would have seen that I started reassembling the engine. So I'm making really good progress on this. After putting it all together, I need belts, and of course I don't know what size they are. So I had to measure what size belts I need with some string, and then decipher what this meant online, and then try to order the correct belt. So I did that, but unfortunately both these belts are a little bit too small. So I'm gonna have to return those and get probably 2, maybe 3 sizes larger. But that's not too bad. I'm getting there. I'm figuring out the system on the belts, and I should have that ready pretty soon. I also, the thermostat housing, the original one was broken. One of the ends broke off where the bolt goes through, and it was really corroded where the radiator hose would have attached to it. So I was waiting on that as well, and that came in this week. So I've got the new housing. I've got all new hoses. I also got a shifter boot, and the tool to put the clutch back on, so I can do that. Once that's on, I think the next thing is going to be to reinstall the brake lines and fuel line, and then put on the Howe fuel injection system. So there's I don't have it over here right now, but there's a plate that goes on here that adapts it to the new fuel injection. And that plate hits this bolt and it hits this section right here. It doesn't fit flushly. So I'm gonna have to modify that a little bit. Also, I don't have the correct washers to actually hold this header on. You can see like this one, it doesn't even touch the header. So these are all just kind of set in place now. But I'll probably make those washers in some way. Either I can find some bigger ones and then maybe put a second one. I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure that out. I might turn something on my lathe to do that. But yeah, okay, so that's the Land Cruiser. That's the Honda. Okay, so anyways, very frustrating last few days. I also didn't get a chance to post as many videos this week. You know, like I said before, this whole coronavirus thing is crazy. I have a lot more family obligations now. We're all home together, and you know, I just don't have as much time to spend in the shop. But I will try to get as many videos out as I can. This Honda will, I'm confident, eventually be back together. The system that I came up with to put the pistons in seems to be working pretty good. So I'm getting close, but it's still frustratingly slow. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and liking the videos, and of course share them if you like them. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.